Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. If you would like to support this channel, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Supply Your Own. My company used to rent out a section of a warehouse from a different company that we had been in partnership with previously. We had a little fenced off section and the use of the forklift that they left on site for their side of the warehouse as part of the deal. Now, whenever the propane tank ran out, I would pull the empty and run it over to their storage cage and let their warehouse manager know I was replacing one so he could keep track of how many he had. One day I go over and he tells me, "Oh, boss says you're supposed to supply your own propane." Alrighty then. Put the empty in the cage and go unload my truck with a pallet jack. The next day I stop and buy 2 tanks so I can swap them out, and whenever I'm not using the forklift, I take the tank off and lock it behind our section. It's my propane after all, and apparently we're going to have rules about that. A few days later, the warehouse manager comes up to unload a truck and asks me where the tank is. I tell him mine is over here. Yours are all down in your cage. So he has to drive down the road and bring one back and reinstall it every time he needs the forklift. The next story is called Every Piece. I picked up a little part-time 2 hours a night, minimum wage office cleaning job for a little extra money. I didn't really need this job, so I didn't care about it. The cleaning supervisor was an absolute jerk from the start. One time she approached me at the start of her shift and showed me some pictures on her phone. The pictures were of papers left on people's desks. She told me to get rid of all of them next time, as it's not nice to leave a mess on the desk and I should know better. Very disappointed she was. Okay then, I clarified. Every piece of paper? Yeah? Yes, I told you. Whatever you say. That night I binned every piece of paper on any desk that I saw. Literally any. Then the next night comes. What did you do? Turns out every piece of paper was things such as important meeting schedules, printouts for people's work the following morning and the like. You know, things that really shouldn't go in the bin. I told her that she told me to get rid of every piece of paper that I saw on her desk. So I did. I then left immediately. The third story is called Sticking to Rules. I work in contracts, meaning my department audits signed documents to make sure everything is legal and compliant with our policies. We have a very old system that we use. Think early DOS. Like a black screen with white words and you type everything manually. Looks like Pong. So typically what happens is I would get a contract for specific mechanical equipment and I would review it to make sure it's possible in a physical sense and that the finances also make sense. Occasionally we will encounter a situation where we need to update our system to allow our contract to go through. This would be if we sold an older piece of equipment that we no longer build but had a few spares lying around. Or if a client bought our equipment from a third-party provider but wants us to service it, since we are the official company that makes the stuff. It's kind of like a car dealership selling a used car that they don't make anymore. It's still part of their brand, but they might not necessarily have software to support it, since it's so outdated. When we have these type of contracts with older equipment, all we have to do is send a note to a person in a specific department and ask her to open the system temporarily to allow these devices to be added and serviced. The way we send this request is that we fill out a form and submit it to this lady. This lady is something. She is a combination of a power-hungry overlord and a scared pathetic mouse. It's very interesting to see. I sometimes play a game to bet on which mode she will respond with. She is very much a bully who cries when she gets called out for being a bully and then says she's being bullied. Yeah, she is fun. One day I received 85 new contracts from the same client, all for used equipment that we don't make anymore and have not for years. Someone found a whole bunch of them for dirt cheap and bought them and now wants us to service them. Good find, Mr. Client. We will be happy to help. Typically you submit 1 request form per device. Filling out the form is a bit of a pain because it's a very manual process and a bit time consuming. I like to be efficient and make life easier, so I did some reviewing and noticed that there are really only like 5 models of machines. 85 different serial numbers, but only 5 types. So I sent off a quick email saying the following. Hi lady, I have a whole bunch of machines to add to the system, but I don't want to submit 85 different tickets to you. I checked and saw there are only 5 model types. Can I send you the request in batches by model? Might make our lives a bit easier than going one by one. Now, this lady is notorious for sticking to the rules. I don't usually mind, because rules exist for a reason. However, they were also created by people, and therefore can be changed by people. In this instance, I was hoping lady would understand that I was trying to save us both some time. Her response was, "It is unacceptable that you think you have the right to change the way we do things. Especially since you don't even work in my department and have no concept of what it is that I do. We do not work however we want. We have procedures to follow, and if you are unfamiliar with these procedures, then it's clear to me that you need training." A new level of bridge has been achieved. So I spent the next 3 hours creating my ticket requests, but I didn't submit them as I went. I waited until I had 85 of them ready to go. Once they were loaded, I spent a hilarious moment clicking send. It was like I was launching little torpedoes every time I clicked send, each one causing a small devastation as they build up in her inbox and overshadow anything else that might have been in her queue. Also, I know she keeps the volume on, so I know she was hearing that thing that has traumatized Outlook users everywhere. I waited for the inevitable tantrum. "Hey, I see you're sending me a bunch of requests. Can't you just bunch them together? This is a lot, and it's messing up my system now due to the constant influx of emails and tickets. I forgot to mention that our laptops are also super old. That many emails in one shot froze our Outlook for some time." I replied, "Oh, sorry that you are having a hard time. I was just following procedures as per your request. I already sent them all, so nothing I can do." "Well, how many requests did you send?" 85. "What?" I then put my status to out to lunch. "Have fun, lady. I'm getting a sandwich." The last story is called Trim the Hedge. This happened about a decade ago, when I was still a teenager and used to live in my parents' house. We are migrants and are on good terms with all the neighbors since the 90s. But we do have a reputation in the neighborhood of frequently undertaking ambitious DIY home improvements and in an atypical manner to what locals expect. Our house is separated from the neighbors with a living hedge wall of cypress trees that grow on our property. At the time, we already lived in the house for the better part of the decade with the same neighbors and the same cypress trees. One day, out of the blue, one of the neighbors sees my mom working in the garden and starts complaining about the state of the living hedge on her side of the property. We usually trim the hedge only from our side and most of the top that we can reach. The neighbor complains and demands we trim the hedge from their side as well. In her eyes, as the hedge wall is planted on our property, it's 100% our responsibility, and they are tired of maintaining it from their side. The altercation is very brief, as my mother surprisingly quickly replies, "Okay," and walks off, grinning. Unbeknown to the neighbor, we already were planning to cut down the hedges to the stump, so that they could regrow anew, as the existing hedge was very old and was not particularly sightly. Previously, we postponed these works as we did not want to upset the neighbors, but this demand provided the perfect excuse. So the next day, while the neighbors are at work, we cut down all the hedges surrounding our property to barely above ground. As we are finishing clearing up the trimmings, the neighbors come back home from work, shocked to discover the hedge practically gone. They look around and realize with the hedge wall gone, their whole backyard, kitchen, living room and bedroom are on full display through the windows. The neighbor questions what we have done and why, as they would no longer have any privacy in their own home. My mom, without missing a beat, replies, "We fixed the problem. The hedge will no longer need trimming from your side," and goes back to clearing up. Within a week, the neighbors came back to us and asked for permission to construct a wooden fence on our property to protect their privacy. We happily agreed, as long as they paid for it all, as we didn't mind waiting a couple of years for the hedge to regrow. Our privacy was much less impacted. They built the fence within the week, and it provided a good surface for some vine flowers to grow, instead of the cypress trees that my mother had wanted to plant for a long time. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories in today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.